Welcome to In the Waiting Ministries with Carol Ann Herchabees. Being in a place of waiting is active. We are actively waiting for something. Being in a time of waiting isn't a bad thing. It can be a time of growth, a time of waiting on the Lord, a time of learning to be quiet and listen to what is going on around us, a time of excited anticipation. It's a time of learning to trust, learning that we are not in control of everything. And it is a time to learn to be patient with God's plans and not always looking to the next thing that we have planned. Just stay quiet and wait for what the Lord has next for you. Maybe that is His message for you today. Just wait, just rest, and listen. Thank you for joining us for Conversations. Today, I am pleased to welcome Shawn Jones, who is the brand ambassador of iamsecond Canada, to In the Waiting Conversations. Thank you for joining us for Conversations. Welcome, Shawn Jones, who is the brand ambassador for iamsecond Canada.
Thanks, Carol Ann. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I think it was about a year ago that I was on the iamsecond YouTube channel, and I saw that you had a website. I didn't even know that there was a website. I just thought that iamsecond was videos. That's what I thought it was. And when I clicked on the button to your website, I learned that there was this whole ministry behind the videos that are out there that I've been watching for years with my kids and just different highlighted people that have come across on social media. So when I found that this was a whole ministry and that now you're in Canada, that was pretty exciting. So I clicked the button that said, if you want to know more about the iamsecond Canada brand, click here. So I did that. And within, I don't know, a few hours, maybe the next day, Shawn had sent me an email. And then the next day we were on a Zoom call. So Shawn, you were right on top of that. And it's been an honor to know you and your wife over the past year. So can you tell us about your start with iamsecond, how you got involved, how they ended up bringing iamsecond into Canada, because I know that it's a US-based ministry. And iamsecond is also connected to other ministries. Can you just explain the whole thing of iamsecond?
Yes, absolutely. And just once again, thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor to spend this time with you and to allow us to talk a little bit about the ministry and about what we're doing. Yes, iamsecond. As you know, many people know iamsecond for their videos, the white chair testimonies, as we call them. We are tracking more than 20 million views on YouTube videos every year and growing, right? So it is really on the forefront of Christian video content, and it's all about sharing people's testimonies, right? From the crooked politician to the superstar sportsman. We just love capturing people's testimonies, and we really do believe there's such a wide variety of testimonies on our website, from well-known people to unknown people. And we're just so encouraged by people's stories about people's testimonies and how they have come through most times a struggle, and Jesus Christ has made a difference in their life. So really and truly, it's the ministry is all about sharing Christ with the world and giving it an edgy, funky, fresh, a young vibe, and we attain that objective by having a wide variety of people that tend to share their testimonies on our platform. So we are just super blessed to see how God's used this ministry and taken it from a little project inside the boundaries of E3 ministry, and taken the small project and just blown it up into something very big and mainstream, that's, reaching all across the world and making an impact for Jesus and what he can do in people's lives. So yeah, coming back to what is the connection with I Am Second and the other ministries? That is the big question. So I Am Second was actually born out of a project within the E3 ministry team. Now E3 Ministries stands for Evangelize, Equip, and Establish. Okay, it's a church planting movement. It's a movement where missionaries go all over the world and plant churches and share the love of Christ and just the ease of how easy it is to plant a church wherever you may be. And it's really based off of the early principles of the disciples, after Jesus ascended back to heaven and left the Great Commission in the hands of his disciples. And we follow very closely in the book of Acts to learn a lot of how these disciples did what they did in the early days of Christianity. And effectively what we do in E3 Ministries is sort of just mirror a lot of what they did in the book of Acts, and recreate churches in people's living rooms. We as the ministry of E3, we identify that there's a lot of challenges that come along with inviting people to the church building in itself, right? The legacy, the church, if you want to call it, the big building. There's a lot of stereotypes, stigmas. There's a lot of there are a lot of hurdles for people to overcome, in order to get into this building. And E3 as a ministry is just recognized, man, if we could bring church to the people and offer people a different way of experiencing Jesus, like if we had to ask people that weren't invitable to the legacy building church, what if we would come to your house, or would you come to my house, and would you listen to stories about Jesus, in my living room, for example, or your living room? And what we find is a very high percentage of those people will say, yes, absolutely. We're interested in God and learning about Jesus. We just don't want to do that, in this big, intimidating building. And so E3 Ministries is all about, spreading the gospel, planting churches all over the world. And this is sort of one of the strategies. Now, that being said, I Am Second was actually birthed out of a project by one of the E3 supporters who came up with the idea of, can we do some kind of a billboard, or can we do some kind of a project where we can make Jesus famous again? How can we do some kind of a project where we can really do something exciting and really make Jesus famous? And the guys sat around a table and they brainstormed some ideas, and people were writing things down, and ended up actually having one person in the meeting that actually took just a permanent marker and scribbled the words "I am second" on the piece of paper. And they loved the idea so much of living your life second by putting God first, that they actually took the handwriting of this person, and this is the actual handwriting from that meeting on that day, and they created the logo out of this what was created in this boardroom around the table. And people often ask, hey, what font is that? What is there a computer font like what's used for the writing? And the answer is no. That's legitimately somebody's handwriting that came out of this meeting, where people were discussing a cool project to do for the ministry of E3. They did this. They came up with the idea of somebody sharing a testimony, and they did it on a white chair, and they recreated, or they created this platform where somebody would sit down and just share a story of how their life was before meeting Christ, how Christ changed their life, and how they live their life now onwards. And this just birthed into something absolutely incredible. They were blown away at the popularity that was the first project, and then they just decided, let's continue with this. Let's, this God's really using this, and this is how the ministry of I Am Second birthed into this massive platform to share white chair testimonies. And yeah, it's a cool story. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's awesome. As I said earlier, I heard of I Am Second through my son, who at the time was a young teenager. So I think maybe in youth or something, they had watched some athlete and his story. And so we started watching at home. We started watching the athletes then, who are now, a lot of them are retired. We were watching Mike Fisher and R.A. Dickey and those guys who are now retired, but what powerful, amazing testimonies. And that only through the grace of God can they even function as an individual. Like, I think of R.A. Dickey's testimony and his story, and I don't even know how he could make a life coming out of that. It's only through the grace of God that you can make a life and share that, and not just be able to not function. So yes. Shawn, you have a bit of an accent yourself. So can you tell us how you got involved with I Am Second, and how you got to Canada? Clearly you're not from here. The idea of bringing I Am Second to Canada, as we said, it was a US-based ministry. And so you came to our church a year ago, I guess, August maybe. And yes. I was very surprised at how few people were familiar with the ministry. So are you finding that a lot in Canada, that few people are familiar with the ministry?
What we are finding, yes, great questions. What we are finding, the popularity of I Am Second is growing at a rapid pace in Canada. Yes, absolutely. And especially now that we have some roots starting to establish, in Canada, we're going to start seeing many, many more people come to know the brand of I Am Second, and just, we're hoping, yes, to eventually be able to legally travel all over Canada, touring and getting involved, in ministry opportunities all over the country, where we can share, what I Am Second's doing. But yes, we're hoping also to start having more Canadian athletes, hockey players, Blue Jays, Toronto FCs. We're hoping to get some of the CFL guys. We really are looking into many opportunities where we can put a Canadian spin on some of these videos, and bring a little bit more of Canada's story, into this ministry. And our American counterparts, they're super excited about this. They are very passionate about this ministry expanding. And, our big brother in the States, of course, was the founder of this ministry. But yeah, they've just seen this opportunity for us to grow. My fancy accent, yes, I'm from South Africa. I'm not Australian, although I have many Australian buddies. And the accents, I'm told, are similar. I don't think so, but so I'm told regularly. Yes, I'm from South Africa. I moved to Canada in 2013, September of 2013. Came up here through an international transfer with the company that I was working for, which is Hilti Canada. Now, I really had a call, to come to Canada. God put this call in my life at an early on, I'd say in the probably it was probably around 2011, 2012. I forget the exact timing of it, but you know, we had a prophetic word shared with us, my wife and I, and you know, I think back to that time. It seems like such a long time ago. You know, I was a Christian, regularly attended church. My wife's a worship leader, you know, in the church, and for me, I was, you know, not getting involved that much. I was one of the guys sort of just warming a seat at church. Loved church, loved going to church, loved God, loved Jesus. Just didn't see where God could use a big clumsy guy like myself, you know, in any sort of ministry. But I think God planted some seeds early on. I had a friend who, like I said, shared this prophetic word with me. He's a farmer. His name is Renee. And Madeleine, his wife, and at a farm they invited us over. It was a time just before Christmas, and he just said, he says, you know, God gave me this dream where he is going to send you guys to Canada. You're going to go over with ease. He's going to open the door, and you know, you're going to have this incredible opportunity, you know, to serve in a ministry. You'll plant churches all over the world and use testimonies to, you know, to change people's lives. And you know, I laughed out loud. I mean, I choke laughed, if that's even a thing. I couldn't believe what this friend of mine was saying, and I really thought he was mistaken. But this is the word he shared, and it was very soon after, you know, giving us this word that God opened the door for us to come to Canada, and things really started getting exciting. You know, I moved. I left home and I came up to Canada. We made the big move, and it was almost immediate that God started putting people in my path, you know, that would be closely related to church planting movements. And, you know, I'll be honest, in those early days, I was terrified by, you know, I was terrified of the call. I was terrified of the magnitude of, I've never planted a church. I'm not the guy. I don't have experience. You know, testimonies. Like I can't even, how, you know, I'm too scared to share my own testimony. How am I going to use testimonies to change people's lives? Like, it just, none of it made sense to me at the time. But you know, God is such a tender, loving Father. He didn't strike me with a bolt of lightning. He gently pursued me, and he put these people in my path, and always kept reminding me of the, you know, of the promise, of the call. And I think eventually, it was 2013 when we arrived. I think I bumped or crossed paths with a really good friend of mine now, my best friend in Canada. His name's Jeremy Doughton. We crossed paths in, I'd say, early 2015, and yeah, you know, I learned a little bit about what he was doing, something to do with iamsecond. And I, you know, I'd heard about the videos before, but never really paid too much attention. I just knew Jeremy worked for iamsecond, you know, and I didn't know much more about it. But a long story short, I was at a men's conference, and one of these gentlemen from across the room hunted me down. He saw me and he just came bolting through the crowd and pulled me aside and gave me his business card. He was from North American Mission Board, NAIMB. And North American Mission Board is an organization which assists people or other ministries in church planting movements, right? And this gentleman told me he didn't know why, but God told him to give me this card. And I received the card, and I was just, you know, I called him the next day because I didn't really know what NAIMB was. And when he told me, I was just terrified. Like, oh man, God is not letting go of this. He's just hunting me down. And I think I went home that afternoon, that evening from the church conference, which I really enjoyed, but I was burdened by this constant hunting down, you know, that God was doing. And I just shared with Jeremy, I shared the frustration of what I was going through. He saw something was heavy on me. He invited me to lunch, and over some sushi, I told him, I said, man, you know, God's not leaving me alone with this. You know, he keeps putting church planting people in my path, and I'm just not that guy, right? Like, I don't know how to plant a church. Like, this is so crazy. And and I told him, I said, like 3 or 4 people, like God just keeps putting these people in my path, you know. And Jeremy started laughing, and I was a little perplexed by this. Why are you laughing? Like, this is really stressful for me. And he started laughing because I didn't know about E3. I just thought he worked for iamsecond. But when he told me, no, my actual position is I'm the director or the leader for the ministry E3 Canada. And I asked him, what is E3? And he told me, he said, evangelize, equip, establish. And I asked him, establish what? He said, the local church. I'm a church planting missionary. And I think after even my best friend sharing with me that this is what he does as a living, I just decided, man, you know, if God's going to go to these lengths to connect me with this ministry, I better start listening before that bolt of lightning eventually does come. Or he sends a whale to swallow me. I don't know. But that's what I did, man. Jeremy told me about this. This was about 2015, and I just started serving as a volunteer, deciding, listen, I'm going to just get a taste for what they do. I'm going to wet my feet, as per se, and just try and serve on a volunteer basis and see how this goes. And that's how it started for me. I just started very slowly, you know, gradually started getting more involved, and just developed an absolute passion and a fire for serving in this ministry. And I think I could see a lot of the tools that I'd sort of developed over the years, you know, in my corporate career, start to flourish and sort of come out, and God showing me how he could use this in officially kickstarting the ministry of iamsecond in Canada. Before, it was sort of just a tool used by the E3 partners in ministry to open up discussions at churches. It wasn't an official ministry that was operating in its own name in Canada. But after much thought and time given to the decision, Jeremy spoke with some of the leaders up in Texas about the prospect of opening up a position for a team lead for iamsecond here in Canada, and to officially launch it here in Canada. And they were ecstatic to offer me that opportunity. And so that's how my journey started with iamsecond. It's still in the very sort of early stages of setting the ministry up. It's a self-fundraised position, so there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done before we sort of fully launch into a role that actually can pay a monthly salary. So I'm still in those baby building block stages, and in large part because of COVID and a lot of that stuff that sort of slowed our launch down, you know. But you can slow it down. But God's operating in his own way, right? Like, we've just seen incredible opportunities. We've seen God move in powerful ways, you know, throughout the pandemic, and using effectively iamsecond as a very powerful tool, because a lot of what we do is online based anyway. You know, it's we're creating content, we're sharing testimonies, we started creating groups, you know, we've got mentoring programs, and all of this can be done online. And really, if I think about it, we started this pandemic with such an advantage, because many ministries had never really had much experience in online ministry, whereas sort of that's really our forte and what we do. And so I just feel like, you know, things can slow down as much as you think they can, but nothing will ever stop the movement of God, right? Like, we're just so blessed to see how God continues to bless this ministry, and how he continues to touch people's lives and make a difference. And it's word for word what this friend shared on my prophetic word, you know. It's all about testimonies, and you know, the other half of my team is planting churches, you know. So we're planting churches and sharing testimonies, and it's just powerful and incredible. And it's the thing I I live to wake up to do. It's just incredible.
Well, you and your wife Isabel, and I met some of the guys from E3. Like, you have this passion and this excitement that is contagious. So, I mean, anybody who comes in contact with you, obviously, they're going to be drawn right into your passion and what you want to do. And I know I was. Now, I am second coach. Very excited about that. Yeah. So my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that E3 kind of goes into other countries, and they are missional in other countries and in poverty, in areas of poverty, whereas I Am Second is more home based, US, Canada. You're doing a lot of things online. So you have Live Second groups. Maybe you can explain that to us. And am I getting that right? The difference between E3 and I Am Second?
Yes. So E3 Ministries is local as well, believe it or not. They do Canada-wide, US-wide. They've shared the church moving movement locally as well as abroad. And yes, but we've got E3 partners, man, all across the globe. I would be very bad in taking a guess of the number. I should have had Jeremy join me for this call, but he's fantastic with remembering all the numbers. But
Next
yeah, there
time.
are,
We'll get them
yes,
next time.
yes, next time. There's literally thousands of team members all across the world representing the E3 movement and the church planting movement, and they are sort of more international. But that being said, I'm second, although we're based in the US and in Canada, and I'm very proud to say as well, so my South African buddy, the Krugers, have actually launched I Am Second in South Africa as well. So the movement is growing internationally as well. But yeah, for now, we are locally based, and we create a lot of the content. All the videos are created in Dallas. But yeah, we've got our own little projects and things that we do locally that keeps us very busy. Live Second groups, that is one of them. Thank you for asking. This is something we're very excited about. So the Live Second groups births from an idea of how can we share this experience of an online video, okay? But then how can we sort of not let that experience end right there? Somebody would usually click on the website or click on the YouTube video, and they would watch the video and afterwards have a lot of questions maybe, and be left with a desire for wanting a little bit more. Well, now if people go and watch the video online, okay, there's, after the video finishes playing, there's an opportunity for them now to connect. If you want to connect further with a Live Second coach, okay, and that starts off as a sort of one-on-one mentoring opportunity, which I'm sure you're familiar with as you've enrolled as one of our coaches. Super excited to start inviting coaches all across the world. Right, this is something that's also international. It's not only meant to stay in the United States or Canada or South Africa for that matter. And how this basically works is when somebody clicks on, I would like to connect further, that message comes to the team at our head office. And the head office basically steers the lead into whichever geography we have set up for Live Second coaches that are living close by or in that area. So we're in that process, man, of attracting more and more coaches and inviting them into the I Am Second family, and coaching them on how to get started, as a one-on-one sort of I Am Second mentor. Now, when you start gathering 3, 4, 5 people, and you start getting a big enough group, a big enough collection of people that you can actually And this is something super exciting. You can actually get an online group started called the Live Second group. And we are so excited about the growth of the Live Second groups, especially in this time, right? In the time of the pandemic, where it's difficult to meet in person. And the way this looks is the group gathers once a week or once every second week, depending on the schedule of the coach. And the guys will come together and really just share community with one another, touch base, see how one another's doing, study stories, in the Bible. The iamsecond team basically prepares the coaches with a lot of content that you can actually lead the group through. We've got opportunities where people can actually sit and watch the videos, the testimonies together, and have open discussions based on on some of the video content, and do you have a similar story? It's all about getting people to ask more questions about faith. It's all about getting people also to feel comfortable about opening up and sharing your own story. This is truly, it's one of the silver bullets that Jesus used to reach the crowds. He used so many parables and stories. He was, in my opinion, the world's greatest storyteller. These stories are still being told all over the world, in the number one best-selling book, the Bible, all across the globe. And I'm just so inspired by it, because I have a story, and never in my life did I believe that my story could have an impact on anyone else. There was a lot of stuff keeping me from sharing my story, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of embarrassment. And God just broke those chains and showed me how he could have taken my greatest pain and turned it into the mightiest weapon that I can use, by taking the story, turning it around against the enemy and showing him what he meant to destroy me with, I can really use to defeat him with. So, we look to do this. We look to bring people into these groups. We look to love on them. We look to answer questions, have discussions, and we look to getting people to open up and share their stories and create a movement. Because, if we're going to reach every single person in Canada and abroad, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it by sharing our stories. Speaking of there was a time in my life, before I knew Jesus. When I met Jesus, this is what he did, and he completely changed my life. And now I live with a life of purpose and a life of passion, and I live to serve him. And so these are the kind of stories that we're so excited about teaching people in the groups, how to do this. And that's not to say, like, who knows? We've had many people join these groups and then eventually mature enough in these groups to want to actually go and check out a legacy church. And now they've got the confidence to do that if that's their desire. But yeah, we really do emphasize a strong focus on using this opportunity as mentors or coaches, to speak into people's lives, pull them into groups, and get these groups meeting on a regular basis like a church, and from there, just multiplying and get these groups to create more groups. And that's what it's all about. We're seeing this all across the US, growing at an alarming rate. That's great. But we see the opportunity just as much here in Canada, right? And that's what we truly are believing for. We're believing, with the startup of iamsecond in Canada and the kicking off of this ministry here locally, we want to see this grow, and we want to see this become as popular as the US. And I really believe it can happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your approach to ministry, the iamsecond approach with the online Live Second groups, I mean, that's an approach that now the world has had to take because of COVID. So as you said, you were ahead of the curve, where those of us who are in church ministry, we were like, oh my goodness, like, how do we go forward, and how do we continue to minister to people? And here you guys are already doing it, and you're doing it well. And we're like, we have to reinvent the wheel. Like, no, we don't have to reinvent that. You guys already reinvented the wheel. So we've, and I myself have taken your format, and I've taken my leaders through it, and even my young adult, I'm kind of one of the mentors for the young adults group in our church. And the I Am Second program, and what you're using, and the stories and everything that you're using, and how you're getting people to, read a biblical story, retell the story, read it again, retell it. It makes it not as intimidating, the Bible, not as intimidating, because some people are completely just can't even go there. The Bible is just very intimidating. The way you reach out to people, it's so basic, and it's just easy camaraderie, and the fact that you're encouraging people to tell their stories by you as a leader telling your story. And I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine just a few days ago, actually. We grew up, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I think I'm a little older than you, Shawn. And so we grew up in the age of church, where if you struggled, you went home, you cried at home, but that was it. Like, when you walked out that door, life was perfect, and you did not let anybody know. And I can remember, I was young. I was about 22, and I had had something that had completely rocked my world. And I said to my senior pastor at the time, I said, "Do you mind if I just take a little bit of a break from the platform? I just want to sit down in with the people. I don't want, like, all eyes on me kind of thing." And he said to me, and I mean, he is a great guy, but his answer was just so typical of the time. His answer was, "No, you're going to get up there, you're going to sit there, you're going to lead in prayer, you're going to do what you're going to do. Nobody's going to know that this bothers you, and then you're going to go home and you can fall apart." And that was the time. Like, I don't blame him. That was how my mother, that was the same thing my mother said. I'm always reminded of, I don't know if you listen to country music, but that Miranda Lambert song that says, put your lipstick on and your makeup and walk out the door and put a smile on your face. And I'm thinking, like, that's how we were raised in my generation. And now there's this movement, both in and out of the church, that says, "No, tell your story. Tell people that you're not perfect. Nobody can relate to perfect. So if you tell your story, then you're going to encourage somebody else." And what a foreign concept to me. Like, when my pastor currently said to me, "Yeah, no, like, you need to share this," I was like, "What?" Like, this is people are gonna know that my life isn't perfect. And he's like, "Yeah, like, people need to know that. How can they relate to perfect when their life isn't perfect, right?" And Jesus, as you say, the perfect example of the storyteller, and the perfect example of the storyteller of the imperfect person, and how that imperfect person came to know Christ, and wanted to follow Christ, and wanted to be a disciple of Christ. And I'm always telling my small group leaders, like, a disciple is not a Christian term. It's a worldly term. Disciple, you can be a disciple of anybody. You can be a disciple of Freud. You can, anybody that you want to pattern yourself after. So, we're trying to pattern ourselves after Christ. And his stories and his family tree was so far from perfect. So
Mm.
I think his family tree should make us all feel good about ourselves. So I don't
Amen.
know if you have anything to add to that, Shawn.
Yeah, amen. So often we hear the same, you hear the same people sharing the exact same thing. Oh no, the church is not for me. I can't come to church. Look, all these perfect little saints that go to church. That's not me. You don't know what I did. I was one of those guys. For me, there was no way. I thought I would melt as soon as I put one foot in church. I would not be welcome. I just didn't feel like that was a place for me. Um, but small groups is where a lot of change happened for me. I think uh, also probably coming from a big sporting background. I was always involved in very high level competitive sports, and I always looked for opportunities to be in a team. Camaraderie. That was always big for me. And what I find is you might not always feel camaraderie at a big legacy church. You might just feel like a small number. But when you start talking about, hey, man, you want to meet, you want to get together with 6 people and just talk about God? Wow, man, there's a bond that happens in a small group like that is very powerful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we so encourage people feeling free, to take your testimony and use it, like share what's happened in your life. Because I like to tell my friends, man, if you think you're in a ministry, if you think you're not in a ministry, you're wrong. Because whatever you've endured or come through in your life and beat, and you've come on top, you've got on top of it, or even if you're still trying to get on top of it, God's equipping you with tools, and that's your ministry. So, if you're a cancer survivor, hey, guess what your ministry is? You're going to preach to cancer, people struggling with cancer. If you overcome abuse in your life, if that's been your struggle from, childhood to now, well, guess what, Shawn Jones, that's your ministry, brother. You're going to step into this role. You're going to use your story, and it's going to be, hey, man, shout it from the mountaintops. Not in a prideful way, but in a way that can create me too moments, is what I like to call. Me too. Hey, I also struggled with that. And now, this kid wants to share with me his story because he can relate to what I've shared with him. And so we see moments like that all the time, in these groups, where we leading the Live Second groups, or the E3 groups, the church groups that these guys are establishing and planting all over the place. But yes, Carol, I really get behind what you were saying there, my friend, and I 100% agree with you, man. Overcoming your biggest fear can often be, overcoming what you've endured. And that sometimes is a story so personal and so private. But once you learn how to forgive and to really release that and allow God to use that, as a weapon against the enemy, it's a beautiful thing. It's a powerful thing, to be honest. And it creates passion and it creates excitement, and it gets people mobilized, to want to share and help other people do the same thing. Because it's sort of that awakening, if you want to call it, like, I know something that I didn't know before, and I want my friends to know it. And that's what it's all about. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so I just heard you say once you've experienced it and you've experienced healing, and I think that that's a key factor, right? When sharing your testimony,
Mm,
I've had people come to me and say, I really feel like I need to share this testimony
mm,
in a setting, and I've said, okay, like, tell me about it, and tell me how God has brought you from here and all of this hurt and all of this resentment, and has brought you, you've gone into this pit, and now he's brought you out of this pit. So tell me how he's done that. And some of them have said, well, no, like I'm still really struggling with that. And I said, well, I think that you need to have some time with God and really pray about this and get to the point where you um, not only receive healing, but where you're able to forgive as well, because that's a point of healing as well. Because a lady spoke to me. She is an international speaker, author, just this amazing woman. And she said to me, you can bring people into a pit when you're speaking, but you have to be able to take them out of that pit and tell them how God brought you out of that. And I thought that was just a really great analogy. And so people that I have spoken to, they had to walk away and really, really think about that. And there's also this, do I want to forgive that person? And because of what happened to me, do I want to forgive? And so they have to come to terms with that. And you can't lead a group into healing and forgiveness until you have experienced that yourself.
Yes, absolutely agreed. One of the things that I love about testimonies is it's a way of pulling someone out of the pit or giving them a blueprint, a map, how to get out. Because like me, when I started going to church and people would just quote me the forgiveness verses, and I struggled with that. Like, well, it's easy just to read something, to tell me to do something because God said so. Would be easier if you showed me, you know what I'm saying? But very often, some of the people that would be reading the Bible to me, would be hiding a lot of the hurt and the struggle, in their own lives, and not, fully living out what they were teaching. And I think for me, I found it so important because it affected my journey of faith so much. When I first seen a close brother show me what forgiveness did for him, it's easy just to say, yeah, you need to forgive, because God, Jesus died for us and forgave us. And it's easy just to say the words. They don't always make sense, right? They don't. And I clung on to unforgiveness for a very long time, for anger, to anger. And, and you're right. It's something, if we're truly honest, it's something, hey, that's ours. Like, hey, man, I like this. I like to not like this person. I like to, keep you at a distance because of what you did. But it's almost like drinking the poison and hoping the other person dies. And that's truly what unforgiveness is. And when you start seeing friends, close brothers, like people that you really trust, when you start seeing somebody else walk this out in their life and feel and see breakthrough, well, then that intrigues me. Okay, what's that all about? How is it possible that you feel that way after just after just forgiving someone? Like, and how do you really forgive? How do you forgive and make it genuine? Like, how do you truly forgive? Because that's something I think I really struggled with for a long time. I said that I'd forgiven someone, and possibly not completely, because I find myself always going back to sometimes the good old, I've still got this, I'm still not going to talk to you because of this. But I tell you, man, once you fully embrace the truth of healing, of forgiveness, and how you can be healed by this, it'll change your life, right? It will really set you free. I know it sounds like such a cliche, and sometimes you can't do it all at once. Sometimes you got to take it in bite-sized chunks. You got to forgive in baby steps, and as you start seeing victory or freedom from this bondage in little bite sizes, it gets easier to forgive as your journey continues. But I love the analogy of can we instead of just telling people about the pit, can we show them how to get out? Like, can we lower the rope and just say, hey man, this is how I got out. You want to get out? It's real easy. Well, it doesn't feel easy at the time, but
No.
when you get a practical display or an example, especially from someone you love or trust, man, I tell you, it's powerful. It really is powerful.
Yeah, and it can be an ongoing thing. I mean, I know in my life, there's people who, obviously there's different degrees of forgiveness and hurt and all of that. And, you can think, and I have thought, okay, I have got this under control. Like, it is no problem. And then all of a sudden you like run into that person, or that name pops up, and all of these feelings come back, and you're like, oh, like, God, we dealt with this already. Like, I dealt with this. I don't want to deal with it. And then it's like all over again. And that's a process but I think too, that that's part of our story. And that also helps people who, are dealing with maybe regrettable decisions or anything from their past, and then something pops up out of nowhere and it brings them right back to where they were. And I think that is another opportunity that we can say, yeah, that's normal. You got to walk through that with God. And that's happened to me. And just the whole storytelling thing, it's not a new concept, but it seems like a new concept. And it's just such an amazing concept to share your story, and other people can relate. And I mean, even Kathy Gifford, she is one of the people, and she talks about the loss of her husband. And she didn't have this huge, like, abusive background, but she talks about her husband. And I mean, I can't sit through her video with dry eyes. Like, it's just like overwhelming. So the stories that I Am Second are telling, they're so vast. There's no way that there is not a story that targets every single individual, because it's everybody, men, women, all ages, all vocations. I mean, most of them are well known. And the other thing that I really like about I Am Second and E3, it's not just that it's multicultural, but it's I'm not going to say this right, but like, backgrounds are so different. Like, you're coming from such different backgrounds, and you're standing there in a circle, and you're standing there with a guy who's like full of tattoos and plugs in his ears, and then the guy beside him is this older, very distinguished looking gentleman. And I'm sitting at the table, and they're all just talking, and they're just talking about what God has done in their life, and how he's changed them. But yet he didn't change, like, the essence of who they are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, I think of Paul in the Bible, and Saul was like an in your face kind of guy. Like, he was in your face. He was passionate about his belief. He was, killing the Christians. He was doing everything to persecute the church. When God got a hold of Paul and called him, when he got a hold of Saul and called him Paul, he didn't completely change his personality. I mean, Paul was still this in your face kind of person. Yes. He just had a new passion.
100%. I'm so happy you said that. It's because it's the same thing for me in my current journey. Like, that's why I was referencing a little earlier. So many of the tools that I've developed, or the skills, so many of the strengths that I carry in my secular job have really followed me into the ministry. And my passion, my desire, to get, into this role, or to practically get out there and do something and share something. and to share testimonies and show people the way. It's you're so right. Like God really is incredible when He's picking a team, because He can pick a team from. I mean, you met Brody, right? Brody, big muscular guy full of tattoos. Brody was a presence every time he stepped into a room. You know, he was in gangs. He was in all types of rough situations and dangerous places. And I got to tell you, he's no different. He's not in a gang with guns, but he's in a gang, man, for Jesus. Like this, his team is just unstoppable. Brody still finds himself in super dangerous places, but now he's there preaching to the guys that he knew in his previous life, and he's sharing Jesus with them, and he's not afraid. I mean, God is so powerful and so amazing, and He'll stop at nothing to reach the farthest ends of the earth to reach His people. And very often He'll take a Saul and make a Paul, right? And that's what I love about and that's another testimony, right? That's, man, we just keep putting another one in the bank, put another one in the bank, put another one in the bank, because there's many more Brodies out there. There's many more Pauls out there, like, and the harvest is plenty, but, the workers are few. And that's what, our job, if we really are truly honest, if we really read the Bible well, the Great Commission, God didn't put that in the Bible only for the Billy Grahams, okay? The Great Commission is for every single one of us. But you're not always going to, must be careful how I say it, but you're not always going to hear that on a Sunday service, okay? But this is the truth, that you are called to get into the game, man. You've got some skin in the game. Don't get to the pearly gates one day and, you've got a cousin that got saved. Great. I mean, great if that's all, but man, get up there with a little book, man. Get up there with get up there with the hard drive. Fill it up. Let's sometimes people discount the power of their testimony. This comes up a lot. Well, my story is nowhere near as good as yours. Nonsense. I'm telling you, everybody's story speaks to somebody, because my story might be radical and just crazy out of this world, but that's not going to speak to everybody, because not everyone's going to be able to relate to my story. That's why I say to every single person that I'm able to, man, your story matters more than you would know, because if there's another replica like you out there, my story is not going to matter to that person. In fact, it might even discourage, might even make him feel less than himself. But your story has the power and the opportunity, to be a seed that falls on fertile soil, and that's what I'm excited about.
And I mean, I know we should have ended this like 20 minutes ago, but I love talking to you, Shawn. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking about, these people that hung out with Christ, that hung out with Jesus. And I'm thinking of Peter and Andrew, who were brothers. And, Peter was the Billy Graham, but he was also the guy who always, stuck his foot in his mouth. But he was the guy who, ministered to the multitudes. But Andrew was his brother, and he was no less effective, but he ministered to them one-on-one. And they were called to very different ministries, but God called them both. And it was Andrew who introduced Peter to Christ. I mean, how amazing. Like Andrew,
Incredible.
I mean, obviously never met him. He seemed like a quiet guy. Like from what I read, he seems kind of like a quiet, reserved guy. I'll talk to you like one-on-one. Don't get me up in front of people. But he brought Peter, the mouthpiece, who wrote a lot of the New Testament, who was, just so involved in the ministry. And that was because of Andrew, who was just this quiet guy. So you can be this quiet person, or you can be this overpowering personality, and God will put you where He needs to put you, because we need, I mean, he created us with personality. He created us with sense of humor. He created us with sarcasm. Like, I think about that, and I think about how Christ interacted with people. And I mean, we get sarcastic people, and came from somewhere, it didn't come from. So I am sure that Jesus Christ was this really funny, possibly crazy, sarcastic guy who his friends just loved him because he just had this charismatic personality that drew people to him. And he's given that to us as we are co-heirs with Christ. We are adopted co-heirs with Christ. And the Bible says that the same power that raised Christ from the dead that we have living in us, which is very hard to believe. I mean, I have a hard time with the whole, mustard seed and you can move a mountain. I haven't moved a mountain yet, but yeah, amazing things. And you guys are doing amazing things. So I have two more quick questions that I want to ask you. One is, so I am second. So you are a missionary in Canada. So you have to raise all of your own funds. So if somebody's watching this video, how would they donate to I Am Second Canada? Let's say they don't, they're Canadian. We don't want to donate to the States. We're Canadians. So how do we donate to I Am Second Canada?
So great question. Thank you so much for asking. I have a link to the Canadian website, which I will gladly share with you, and you can possibly attach to this video.
Yeah.
But people can also reach out to the I Am Second Canada Facebook page, as well as the I Am Second Canada Instagram page. And they can shoot me private messages there. Those messages will come directly to me, and we can get a conversation started. Now, whether you just want to know about Live Second groups, or whether you'd love to get involved as one of the ministry partners, we'd be so blessed by that. Yeah, these are some practical ways that you can get connected directly with the ministry of I Am Second here in Canada. But yeah, we just, like I said before, this ministry is completely reliant on our Christian brothers and sisters that are lifting us up and enabling us to be able to do this full time. And that's what we're really striving towards, to be able to officially launch full time and, get out of all of our commitments, to secular jobs, so that we can pursue this ministry full time. And I mean, we have seen God move in incredibly powerful ways. We don't discount what God's already done during COVID. We think it's truly inspiring, and it's kept us so fired up and moving. But it's difficult when you can't meet with people face to face, right? Like, this is something, it's an energy thing. It's a passion thing. You want to share this, and sometimes you lose a bit of that on a Zoom call. But yes, if people just want to hear one-on-one a little bit more about the ministry before they make a decision about whether or not they would like to support, I'd be happy to do a Zoom call one-on-one, and they can also connect with me through the I Am Second Canada on Facebook, or I Am Second Canada on Instagram. The link I'll share with you for this video afterwards, as I said.
Yeah.
And I've also got an email address, which I'll gladly share with you as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, I will put that all on. It will be included when I post this. Yeah, there was something else I was going to ask, but I forget what it was. Okay. And so my last question, which I did send to you, and maybe you've already answered it in talking about Jeremy, but is there someone in your life that at some point has made such a huge difference and such a huge impact for your relationship with God and your desire to be in ministry that you would consider them a mentor or you don't have to give us a name, or just somebody that has influenced you and brought you to where you are today?
So that is such a difficult question to answer because there are several,
Yes.
and I will gladly mention their names. They don't need the credit now because they're going to get so much of it when they get to heaven. But first and foremost, I'll say Isabel, my wife, has been one of the earliest inspirations for me. Okay, because our story started off like a fairy tale. Okay, a fairy tale love story. It jumped into absolute hell on earth, and then God stepped in, and it was difficult for me to move into religion or into relationship and forgiveness. And there was a much bigger struggle in my journey. But I stood by and I watched how my wife just flourished in God's presence and flourished when she forgave and when she went ahead of me. And I'm amazed by how incredibly amazing she is. She's such a godly woman. She really did set the example for me, even though it probably should have been me setting the example, in the household. But I'm just blessed to have her in my life because, without Isabel, I think I'd still be really struggling with some of the forgiveness stuff. After her, though, man, there's some really important men that stepped up in my life. And, in the early days, I think to people like Renee, my friend who shared the prophetic word with me, one of my first small group leaders, Brett, in South Africa, he knows who he is. Incredible men like Pete Cruikshank, which is one of the leaders in the groups that I'm attending now, Dave Shifley and Jeremy Doughton. Jeremy, oh my word. I keep telling everyone this. Everyone needs a friend like Jeremy, man. He is a one-stop, like, get everything, God's, like, this is God's Jack in the box. He is incredible. Always be putting yourself around people that will build you up, that will give you cause to grow. That's what I always say. And that's why there's so many people. I couldn't name one. But yeah, that's my answer and I'm sticking to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Shawn, for the interview, for being with us tonight. Thank you for sharing your story as well as I Am Second. So we will put up the websites and the Facebook addresses and Instagram addresses, and I think I'm even going to put up Brody's story because
Yes.
nobody believes us when we're talking about it. Nobody believes us until they see him, because I didn't believe. I mean, you were telling me about him and I was thinking, yeah, okay. Then I met him and I was like, whoa. But so just such a gentle spirit, just such a gentle man. And yeah, and thanks, Shawn. And you know what? I am so looking forward to doing a crusade with you
we
someday.
can't wait.
I just I can't wait. It's like bouncing out of me that I want to do that. And in front of anybody who's listening to this, you promised me that I would meet Mike Fisher. So maybe this will get to them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Thank you again, Carol Ann, for having me on. And I'm really honored to be able to come and join you and share this with you. I'm super excited to make another visit. I was just speaking to Isabel, man. She sends her love. She asked me to not forget to please send her love. And we are way overdue for another visit to your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So Pembroke, watch out. We're coming back soon.
Yeah, we want you. And our senior pastor missed you last time because he was on vacation, but he wants to meet all of you because he met E3 but missed you guys. So
Yes.
yeah, definitely. Maybe September when when things settle down, who the heck knows, right? Like,
Yes,
are things
yes,
ever
yes,
going to settle down? But
yes.
but thanks, and I'm going to close off our recording now, and we will definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information on our ministries, please visit my website at inthewaitingministries.com. I'd invite you to also check out my YouTube channel, and I'm also on Facebook at In the Waiting Ministries.